Subscribe and like and comment and share please.
The secret of the special royal dough. The bakery on Maple Street had been closed for 30 years when Elena Reyes first pushed open its creaking door. Dust motes swirled in the afternoon light streaming through grimy windows, and the air smelled of old wood and forgotten dreams. But Elena saw past all that as she saw possibility. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. A bakery is more than flour and ovens, Mija. It's where a community finds its heart. Elena had spent the last decade working in prestigious kitchens across 3 continents, mastering techniques under Michelin-starred chefs, but she'd never felt the satisfaction she was searching for. Something was always missing. Then, 6 months ago, her grandmother passed away, leaving Elena a worn leather journal and a cryptic note. Find the special royal dough. It's waiting for you where your story began. The journal was filled with recipes in her grandmother's elegant script, but one page was different. The heading read Special Royal Dough, the original recipe, and beneath it were ingredients listed in measurements Elena had never seen before: 1 measure of patience, 2 measures of hope, 3 of perseverance, and a generous handful of love. The actual ingredients of flour, water, yeast, salt were listed below, but with the strangest instruction: mix when your heart remembers why you began. Now, standing in this abandoned bakery in her hometown of Millbrook, Elena understood. This was where her grandmother had first taught her to bake, before the cancer, before the bakery closed, before Elena's family scattered to find work elsewhere. She spent 3 weeks cleaning, repairing, and renovating. The old brick oven, miraculously, still worked. Local contractors, remembering her grandmother's kindness, offered their services at cost. Slowly, the bakery transformed. But Elena still hadn't attempted the special royal dough. The night before her planned opening, Elena stood in the kitchen at 2 a.m., the journal open before her. She'd mixed countless doughs in her career, but her hands trembled as she measured the flour. This was different. This mattered. She began to mix, and as her hands worked the dough, memories flooded back. She was 7 years old again, standing on a stool beside her grandmother, learning to knead. Feel the dough, Elena. It tells you what it needs. Too dry? Add water. Too wet? More flour. But most importantly, give it time. Patience makes perfection. Elena worked the dough with growing confidence, her professional training merging with childhood lessons. The dough began to transform under her hands, becoming silky and elastic. She shaped it into a round, covered it with a cloth, and left it to rise overnight. At dawn, she returned to find something extraordinary. The dough had risen perfectly, yes, but it seemed to glow with a subtle warmth. Elena shaped it into loaves and rolls, creating the traditional braided pattern her grandmother had taught her, the royal crown design that gave the dough its name. When the first loaves emerged from the brick oven, their golden crusts gleaming, their aroma filling every corner of the bakery, Elena understood what made the dough special. It wasn't magic. It was memory, tradition, and intention baked into every fiber. It was the physical manifestation of why baking mattered, not just as sustenance, but as connection. The bakery's opening day arrived. Elena had modest expectations of perhaps a few curious neighbors, some former customers of her grandmother's. Instead, a line formed before she unlocked the doors. At the front stood Mrs. Chen, who'd lived next door to the bakery for 40 years. "I thought I'd never smell that bread again," Mrs. Chen said, tears in her eyes. "Your grandmother used to save me a roll every Friday. We'd have tea and talk about our weeks." As customers entered, similar stories emerged. Mr. Patterson remembered proposing to his wife over a table in the corner. The Rodriguez family had celebrated every birthday here for 2 generations. The special royal dough wasn't just bread, it was the thread that wove through the community's collective memory. By noon, Elena had sold everything. But more importantly, she'd had dozens of conversations, collected countless stories, and reconnected with a community she'd almost forgotten. She understood now what her grandmother had known all along: the special ingredient wasn't in the dough itself, but in what the dough created: a gathering, sharing, remembering, belonging. As weeks passed, the bakery became what it had been before: a gathering place. Elena added tables and chairs. She hired Maria, a recent culinary school graduate who reminded her of her younger self. Together, they experimented with new recipes while honoring traditional ones. But the special royal dough remained the cornerstone, baked fresh every morning using her grandmother's method. One rainy afternoon, a well-dressed man in his 60s entered, shaking water from his umbrella. He studied the bakery with an intense gaze, then approached the counter. "I'm James Whitmore," he said. "This was my father's building. He sold it to Lucia Reyes in 1968. Elena's hand froze over the register. "My grandmother. I was 12 years old when we left Millbrook. My father's business failed, and we had to leave everything behind. But before we left, your grandmother gave my mother a loaf of her special royal dough. She said, 'Wherever you go, remember you'll always have a home here.'" He paused, his voice thick with emotion. "My mother kept that bread until it was just crumbs. She'd smell it when she was homesick. When she passed last year, I found those crumbs in a box with a note: 'Tell Lucia thank you.'" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "She passed 6 months ago." "I know. That's why I'm here." He pulled out a worn envelope. "My mother wanted to buy back the building, to preserve what your grandmother created. This is the deed. I'm signing it over to you, free and clear." "My mother's will stipulated it." She said, "Some debts aren't measured in money." Elena couldn't speak. She thought of her grandmother's cryptic message, the journal, the journey that had led her home. The special royal dough had been waiting for her, but not just as a recipe, as a legacy of kindness, community, and connection that rippled across decades. "There's one condition," James added with a gentle smile. "You have to promise to keep making that bread, and to remember that a bakery is more than flour and ovens. It's where a community finds its heart." Elena finished, repeating her grandmother's words. That evening, after closing, Elena sat in the quiet bakery with the journal open before her. She added her own entry beneath her grandmother's recipe. "Today I learned what makes the dough truly special. It's not just patience, hope, perseverance, and love mixed into flour. It's the promise that when we create something with intention and share it freely, we plant seeds that grow in ways we'll never fully see. We feed not just bodies, but souls. We create not just bread, but belonging." This is the secret my grandmother wanted me to discover, not through being told, but through living it. The special royal dough isn't really about the dough at all. It's about rising to become who we're meant to be, shaped by those who loved us, and carrying their warmth forward into the world. Elena closed the journal and looked around the bakery. Her bakery now, in every sense. Tomorrow she'd wake at dawn to mix the dough again, continuing a tradition that had been entrusted to her. And someday, perhaps, she'd pass it on to someone else who needed to find their way home. The special royal dough would be waiting, as it always had been, to teach its lessons to those ready to learn, that the most important ingredients can't be measured, that some recipes are really maps to finding ourselves, and that what we create with love becomes something far greater than its parts, so it becomes a bridge between hearts, across time, forever rising.